And there's Serena on the approved, purpose. Okay. And you said Anna was joining Zoom?
Anna's, joining Zoom for Just Cause.
For just cause, okay.
Just to let you know, I'm sorry. I didn't see you so long. Oh, it's okay, thank you. I'll vote.
I'm glad you're paying attention though, Kevin.
Yeah, I often find little things in some minutes and make sure they're correct.
Oh, yeah.
Because if somebody ever looks at them and finds typos, then it reflects poorly on the agency.
Then do I need to wait for Mr. Loretta? Do we need to wait for Mr. Loretta?
It's on his way.
His way. Okay. And there's Anna, give her a second to sign in.
No, you're right. Thanks.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1:01 PM. Do we need to commence with a roll call?
Yeah, we, just note. Okay, remember, Solis, we want to put her on a new state for participation.
Hi, I'm here.
Um,
Sorry.
joined remotely for Just Cause for any reason that you're,
Yes, I'm really sick, so I didn't want to go in person.
okay, and can you state if you have anyone under 18 and your location?
No,
Okay,
nobody under 18.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And member Macias,
Present.
member Velasquez,
Here,
and then if you can state your remote participation.
yes, thank you. Had back-to-back work meetings and unable to make it on time for travel purposes.
And your location, and you don't have anyone under 18 in your
No.
location. And then member Lopez,
Present.
member Dayton,
Here,
and member Albert.
here.
Thank you, and then we do have Oakland.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask Mr. Sadort to come up regarding the new chair and vice chair for the Measure Q Oversight Committee.
Certainly. Yes, at last year's meeting, we learned that Bobby Merritt would be moving. Thank you. And per the that left us without a chair. And per the oversight bylaws, we need to conduct an election of officers for a chair and vice chair. We've had Mr. Macias as the current vice chair indicate his interest in being chair. We've had Mr. Albert indicate his willingness to be vice chair. I won't go so far as to say this meeting. So with that, if we could have if there would be a motion and an action taken, we could elect, staff recommends to elect a new chair and vice chair of those members who have expressed willingness and interest to do so.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Stephen Status as chair and Dan Albert as vice chair.
I'll second.
Have a first by member Dayton and a second by Juan Lopez. And we'll do a roll call vote. So member Solis,
Yes.
member Macias,
Aye.
member Velasquez,
Yes.
member Lopez,
Yes.
and member Dayton,
Aye.
and member Albert.
Yes.
Okay, and so the motion. Thank you.
Congratulations.
On item 2, public comments on matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody in person who would like to share? Seeing none, any participants via Zoom? Seeing none, on to item 3, the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes from the last meeting dated March 16th, 2026.
Mr. Chair, I looked over the minutes, which is the only item on the consent agenda, and I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second,
So the first was member Gayton. Again, seconded by member Lopez. We'll do a roll call vote.
No.
Albert.
Member Albert,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vice Chair Albert.
it's okay.
Thank you. Member Solis,
Yes.
member Macias,
Aye.
member Velasquez.
Yes.
Member Lopez, member Gayton,
Yes,
and member Albert.
Yes,
Thank you.
Next is item 4, action items. First is the Measure Q Mobility Program updates from Christy Sugabo.
Good afternoon, Measure Q Committee, members of the public and MST staff. I'm Christy Sugabo, Mobility Services Manager. My presentation this afternoon is on Measure Q Mobility Programs Update. Next slide, please. So I will be providing an update for the 5 core programs that are funded by Measure Q, which is the Navigator Volunteer Program, Travel Training Program, MST Rides Program. I'll focus on eligibility, Taxi Voucher Program, the Transportation Reimbursement Incentive Program, TRIPS. And then last, I will introduce the new pilot program, the MST Uber Voucher. Next slide, please. So let's start with the Navigator Volunteer Program. It ended the fiscal year with 9 volunteers. Volunteers connects our communities by assisting in promoting MST services and mobility programs. They are regularly assigned in outreach activities throughout Monterey County. You will find them at locations that include Shoals Park Center in Monterey, Aldemeyer Center in Seaside, Junsei Oaks Marina, Salinas Firehouse Senior Center, Chispa Housing for seniors and persons with disability, and then also Meals on Wheels of Salinas Valley, both in South County and North County senior social events. Also, the volunteers are trained to work alongside MST staff in travel training activities, which the Navigator volunteers committed a total of 951 hours for fiscal year 26. And then since the program started in 2015 to now, the total volunteer hours service hours is 9,235. Next slide, please. So the next program is the travel training program, where MST continues to connect communities. The program teaches individuals how to safely and independently travel using the bus system. Travel training sessions can either be done one-on-one or in groups. The program is open to anyone, varying from young adults, any organizations, the elderly or veterans. Skills learned during the training will vary depending on participants' needs. It could be from planning a trip to understanding schedules or learning how to board the bus with mobility device like a manual wheelchair or a power scooter. 295 individuals participated in travel training sessions for fiscal year 26. Altogether, since the program started in 2015, 5,286 individuals participated in travel training. Next slide, please. So next is the MST Rights Program. To comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, the program is for persons with disabilities who is prevented from using the regular bus system. Applicants will need to enroll by completing an application and an interview. Certification can vary from temporary 3 years to permanent. Trips are all by reservation and it is a shared ride. It operates during the same hours as that of the regular bus system, within 3/4 of a mile corridor from MSD's bus stop locations. There is a $2 one-way fare for the client, a personal care attendant ride for free, and then the companion is charged the same fare as the client. Next slide, please. So no new clients are interviewed in person and recertifying clients are completed via phone interviews. There were 711 registered clients in fiscal year 26, of which 519 were new applicants and 192 were recertified clients. The program ended the fiscal year with 2,676 registered clients. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates the breakdown of eligibility certification by age and mobility. Those enrolled in the program, 64.87% are age 65 and older. 34.67% are aged 18 and younger than 65. And less than 1% at 0.46 are younger than 18 years old. For mobility, those enrolled, 34.17 are ambulatory, meaning they don't use any mobility aid or devices. We're getting a new
Fire extinguisher test.
Okay, okay. We don't need to evacuate, right?
No.
Okay. 42.27% use mobility aids such as cane and walker, and 23.56% use mobility devices such as manual wheelchair, power chair, or power scooter. So about almost 66% are mobility aid device dependent. Next slide, please. So onto the taxi voucher program. So there are 3 eligibility for the taxi voucher program. So again, for any person who is a senior 65 years and older, people with disabilities, or a veteran, proof of eligibility is required in order to receive taxi vouchers. There are distribution and sign application for the program. The cab drivers are taxi ADA certified. Drivers are trained to provide quality and respectful service to seniors and people with disabilities, to comply with the Americans with Disability Act mandates for taxi operators. Currently, there are 8 taxi cab operators for the taxi voucher program. And for each one-way trip, it's a voucher and a $3 copay for a total taxi meter of $17. And any excess of that $17 one-way trip is the responsibility of the participant to pay. Next slide, please. So fiscal year 26 ended with 9,270 enrolled participants, of which 16.93% is an increase in comparison to fiscal year 24 and 4.85% increase compared to fiscal year 25. And for those trips taken, 66% of trips were taken by seniors, 33% by persons with disabilities, and then 1% by veterans. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates the program's popularity since it started in 2015. Between fiscal year 16 to fiscal year 19, trips were increasing, then the pandemic hit, which caused a decline. Post-pandemic up to fiscal year 26, trip just continues to increase. Overall, in the 11 years, trips total is at 500,029,891. Next slide, please. And then last of the 5 core programs that's funded by Measure Q is the Transportation Reimbursement Incentive Program, TRIPS. So TRIPS is intended for residents that lives outside of MST's service area who may rely on their friends, family, or neighbor to provide them the transportation. It is for the elderly who are 65 and older, people with disabilities, and veterans. Once enrolled in the program, they can choose their volunteer driver, and MST then reimburse the enrolled participant for the miles driven by their volunteer. So trips ended fiscal year with 127 participants. Next slide, please. For fiscal year 26, 10,918 trips were reimbursed. And since fiscal year, or since 2018, when this program was started, there have been 60,016 trips that's been reimbursed. Of those trips taken, 36% are for shopping, 29% are trips to community centers, 26% to medical appointments, and 7% visiting family and friends, and then 2% for work-related trips. Next slide, please. So now to introduce the pilot program, MST Uber Voucher, in partnership with Uber. So MST is offering this on-demand transportation for seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans. It is a pilot program currently only available to residents of Chular, Gonzales, Soledad, Greenfield, King City, plus Castroville, Prundale, and Pajaro. Next slide, please. So the pilot program is a shared cost model. MST is the administrator to oversee program enrollment, customer support, and oversight, while Uber provides the platform app, the driver network, plus a 50,000 contribution toward the pilot program cost, and then Measure Q to cover beyond Uber's contribution. Next slide, please. So again, this is available to South County cities plus Castroville, Pajaro, Prundale. And it's only for any person who is 65 and older, people with disabilities, and veterans. Next slide, please. So how the program works. So participants will need to enroll with MST to receive a voucher link invitation by email or text. And then approved participants download or create an Uber app account. Approved participants accept the voucher link invite, and then what it'll do is it'll credit 10 voucher trips to their Uber wallet. So unused voucher credits will not transfer to the following month. 10 voucher trips credit will reset on the first of each month, and participants will continue to receive a new link invitation every month. For each one-way trip, a $14 is credited to the trip, and participant is responsible to pay a $3 copay. If the trip cost exceeds the $14 and the $3 copay, the remaining balance will be charged to the participant's payment method on file in their Uber wallet. There is no restriction to the purpose of the trip. Next slide, please. So timeline is that this pilot program went live in July. It was introduced to MST board and the Mobility Advisory Committee, MAC. At the end of this month, August, we'll review early results, and then September, we'll continue to monitor the operations and review data. In November, staff will evaluate the program, and the pilot program ends in December, and staff will report back to MST board. Next slide, please. That completes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Chair, I have some comments. First, Christy, and I remember saying this last year, this sort of presentation that you're doing is absolutely critical to keeping people informed about how Measure Q money is being spent. And this actually probably comments should be made at the board meeting, but as a member of the Oversight Committee representing taxpayers, the group that you probably would think of as the most likely to be skeptical or critical of Measure Q. This stuff is very important. And for example, what I like the trends over time. And you have for slide 10, the taxi voucher program. And not only do you show there the number of trips overall, although it doesn't list fiscal year 2026, you show a trend. And I could go and say, look, this program is working, it's increasingly popular. And I'd love to see that for things like, well, slide 3 for the Navigator volunteer program. And the travel training program. I'm hoping that the trend is down over time because as more people are, trained, there's less need to train new people. But this sort of stuff where you show the graphs and charts and provide the factual numbers on people being helped in various ways, that's absolutely critical to talking to these skeptics and critics and saying, you know what, this Measure Q matters. So like last year, I say always when possible, try to have trend charts. And that's very useful. One other thing I think I mentioned last year, I'll let Mayor Velasquez talk more about this. I know both for Measure Q and for Measure X, which is TAMC, people say, you know what, sometimes South County doesn't get the resources or attention that others do. And there's a wide variety of reasons for that. I would be very interested in seeing, and maybe you could just divide it up in the future by supervisor districts. When South County people note, you know what, I'm not sure that we're getting the services that others do. I like to see those numbers, comparisons, and just trend over time. I'm assuming you're going to probably find that South County lags behind for a variety of reasons. But I think one of the roles of the Oversight Committee is to make sure that all geographical, at least there's, all geographic areas are covered. And for those that don't have as much as others, that we have good reasons for that to be the case. And if some of the problem is overcoming logistical barriers, that there's a plan in place to do that. Thank you.
Kara, I have a question. You might have mentioned this in your presentation. Maybe I missed it, but how are the volunteer drivers reimbursed?
So reimbursement is towards the participants, and then the participants reimburse
Oh, I see.
their
So it's
volunteer
pass-
driver.
it's
Yes.
pass through.
Yeah. Our relationship is with the participants and not with their volunteer driver.
So they don't have to register as a driver or anything
Correct.
like that. Well, that takes care of any abuse of any type because they're the ones who are paying them. If they don't pay them, well, they come after them. All
Yeah.
right, great. Thank you. That definitely answers my question.
And then I have a follow-up to that. Chrissy, is that based off the IRS mileage rate?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so that now increased to 76 cents per mile.
Yeah.
And Anna Velasquez has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for some of those comments. Thank you, Christy, for the presentation. I will follow up in terms of the cited and presented. Is there a way that it can be broken down to the director's point in terms of the areas in South County or by supervisor district? I think it would really be helpful to be able to ensure that there's equity in terms of the use of the Measure Q dollars across all sectors of Monterey County. And so I think if there's somehow that some of those charts are awesome because I think the visuals really tell a story. But if we can break it down a little bit more in terms of where those different participants are coming from, I think that would be really helpful. And then also my other question is in regards to the taxi voucher. I just came out of another meeting with South County, the South County mayors and city managers, and the taxi voucher program. And I know we have the pilot MST Uber voucher. There was a lot of concerns in regards to not being able to have the taxi voucher program not really working in South County. So my question is now, is the pilot MST Uber voucher program now the one that is going to support not just the South County communities, obviously, because they include other communities. But is this what we're using now instead of the taxi voucher program that had difficulties and challenges in South County? That's one question. And then my second question is all of this information, because I think obviously Measure Q is a voter approved measure. It's really important to get this out to the community. And so how are we doing? What type of outreach are we doing to ensure that our community is able to have this information and that we're able to share this information broader to our community? Thank you.
Chair, if I may.
Just short.
Thank you. Thank you, Committee Member Velasquez, Mayor Velasquez, Carl Sidoric. And you are correct. There has historically been a lack of taxi cab providers in South County cities. And it was only until very recently we actually had one taxi cab willing to be permitted by the RTA to operate in King City and Greenfield. However, they lack the insurance requirements to participate as a taxi voucher. So this was for us, the final straw, and we have opted to bring in Uber from outside the area. We've attempted for the better part of a decade to get our local taxi operators to serve South County. Lacking that, we've partnered with Uber to do this. Depending on the outcome of this pilot, this may become a model for all of the taxi vouchers and having Uber manage the voucher program, because the numbers that you see are very robust and trending, but all of those vouchers are pieces of paper that staff is recording and verifying and validating and then filing. And Uber is offering us an electronic voucher system that may be better for us to administer and may lower the overall cost of the program. So we'll evaluate through the pilot program. The other question about outreach, yes, we're very aware of the need for renewal of Measure Q. It expires in 2029. The last collections we'll receive will be at the beginning of 2030. So we were looking at as an MST board as a potential renewal of the ballot measure on this current ballot, but the polling indicated to us that this wasn't the time to be talking about any sort of sales tax, even if it's a renewal. There seems to be little appetite, and we require a 2/3 supermajority to renew that sales tax. So we'll be looking at a ballot measure at a later date. In the meantime, we are going to continue a communications plan, and I think it's going to be 2 agenda items after this one that you'll receive an update from Akuyo Yoneda Lopez, our marketing communications manager, talking about how we're starting to talk about the importance of Measure Q now and starting that drumbeat and reinforcing that, so that by the time a ballot measure takes place, the community will be better aware of all the good that it's accomplishing and the value that it's providing in our community. Hopefully that answers your question. Step away.
Yes, thank you so much. And just, Chair, just as a follow-up, especially in these programs, I don't know if we can have a one-page, fact sheet that we can, as members of this committee, but also be able to send out to the cities cities in the county to ensure that they can, share this with their community members, and some of the data points are pretty significant.
And Akuyo will be addressing that later on the agenda.
Are there any additional questions for Christie?
Yes.
So,
So for this Uber pilot, I see that you have a contribution from Uber. Is that just for the duration of the pilot, or if you choose to extend it, is this like a continued commitment from Uber to help with the share of the program's
Who wants
costs?
to take that?
Hi, I'm Norm Tuitavuki. I'm the Chief Operating Officer. So Uber has committed $50,000 to the pilot project itself only. So what that looks like is monthly, there's an invoice received for the trips that were delivered. They cover 90% of that invoice. They deduct it from the $50,000. Once the $50,000 depleted, then we need to circle back as a team to decide whether or not we want to continue going forward or the end of the 6-month pilot. Yeah, so it's not an ongoing commitment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
This time we'll move on to item 4.2, the 2027-2028 Measure Q budget that was adopted by MST.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Lisa Reinheimer, Deputy CEO for MST. Andrea Williams, our Finance Manager, is also here to support. So to fund all of the great programs that Christy just talked about, it does come from, the funding comes from Measure Q. 98% of it, and then there are some passenger fares. So if you look on page 23 of your agenda packet, we've condensed the budget so that it's just focusing in on the Measure Q budget programs. So you can see passenger fares come in at about 285,000, 2% of all revenues. The remaining comes from the Measure Q sales tax. So we are very, very reliant on the Measure Q program. And you'll hear later on after this how we're getting out the information of how important this is to our communities. And then when you turn around and look at the expense side, a good majority of it goes to the rides program. That's that curb to curb service. 72% of the expenses go directly to rides. Most of it to Transdev, who is our contract service provider in the smaller buses. Incidentally, we're going to be changing the look of those buses to better identify them as rides buses, so people can really understand the importance that they provide to the community. And then the rest of the fund, the expenses, 28% goes to some of the other programs that Christy talked about, including fixed route services that provide for seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities, as well as the trips and the travel training and the navigators and. That's the good news, is that we have enough revenue to pay for most of the expenses, but we have subsidized from the MST side some of the services that Measure Q funding would pay for. So since the beginning of Measure Q, and we've talked about this before, we had about a little over $10 million that the MST budget subsidized for Measure Q eligible programs. And at this point, we're looking at basically breaking even without that subsidy starting next fiscal year. So we really do need to spread the word and the message that Measure Q is important to our community. And should the measure not pass, we'll be looking at some pretty drastic cuts within the mobility programs. So that's where we're at. It's a little doom and gloom in terms of the future, but we are looking at ways to trim and cut expenses and have a slow and steady glide path to a potential renewal or potential cuts in the future. And that's all I had for the moment. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item 4.3, the Measure Q informational outreach plan.
Good afternoon, committee. I'll give it a second for the presentation to be pulled up. I think it's coming. There we are. Good afternoon. My name is Iku Lopez. I am the Marketing and Communications Manager here at MST. It's nice to see you all this afternoon. You heard Lisa and Carl and Chrissy talk a little bit about it, but we need to do some work now to set ourselves up for success in a couple of years. Seems like a long time away, but it's going to take some time. So I'm going to kind of share a framework of our communication, not the nitty gritty about every single campaign, but really kind of the pillars for our communication strategy, if you will. Next slide, please. Let's see. And I think most of this committee is very familiar with when Measure Q was approved by our voters in Monterey County. So it's 2014. It's been, what, 12 years now? 12 years since that was approved. In July of 2015 is when we first began collecting revenues. And of course, the funds are going to be used specifically for transportation services for seniors, veterans, and the disabled community. And, you know, as we look ahead, we just need to inform our community about all the good that we've been able to accomplish with Measure Q. And I was thinking about this yesterday with my kids, talking about what Measure Q was. And I thought, wait a minute, they don't know what Measure Q is, but they're voters now. They're voting age now, but when Measure Q was approved in 2014, they were kids. So they wouldn't know about it. So a large portion of our community might not know as well. And so I thought, okay, that's my job right there. There's a lot of people that can't be just reminded. They need to be informed and educated about the benefit of Measure Q. So something changed in my head at that moment about who I need to communicate with, how I need to communicate, and so on. Next slide, please. And because Christy and Lisa talked about all these numbers, I think we could skip past this and go to the next slide. You've seen all the stats. So these are the pillars. We're going to have 3 pillars as we walk through our communication plan. So the first one is essential trips. Our seniors, veterans, and disabled use MST services for essential trips. They're not nice to have trips. They're not necessarily fun trips. They're essential to live life, to go to doctor's appointments, to go pay their bills, to get groceries, basic necessities. That's what they're using these rides for. And I think that needs to be front and center to our community at how critical it is that they continue to support Measure Q. This is not convenience, it's a lifeline. Sounds a little much, but it literally is a lifeline. When you need to get to dialysis and you have no transportation, it's a lifeline. So that's going to be the foundation of our communication strategy. This is not a nice to have, this is a must have. So you'll see that throughout our communications and our strategies going forward in our campaigns. Next slide, please. Next is the continued service versus the cuts. So this is a consequence that we're all going to have to live with if this is not passed. It's not just an impact, it's a consequence, right? It's negative. It's a bad thing if this measure does not pass for our community, for our most vulnerable citizens. The expiration of Measure Q is going to jeopardize more than 250,000 local trips annually. And saying trips, it's impactful, 250,000, but that's 250,000 potential missed doctor's appointments, dialysis, groceries, going to the bank, connecting with family and friends. That's a lot. And I think that's the picture that we need our community to see. These are people that are going to be doing without. Next slide, please. Accountability is the third one. And that's kind of where you guys come in. This committee, the oversight, the taxpayer accountability. They're going to support something that they trust. The public needs to trust this, where the funds are being used. Are we being responsible with it? And so I think highlighting the fact that these funds are managed through a committee with a lot of oversight, transparency, that's going to be another pillar in our communication strategy. Next slide, please. Next, we'll go into kind of a timeline. So as I mentioned, we've started meeting already. It's 2 years out, but we've started discussing how we're going to get ourselves set up for this. We've created fact sheets, we're doing talking points, updating the website, identifying spokespeople in the community that might be supportive of what we do. We're creating all these materials now in kind of a toolkit, and we'd be happy to share that with any of you. And would be grateful if you shared it with your communities as well. Next summer, or next year, actually, we'll be going out, I believe, with a tracking survey to kind of take the temperature. How's the community feeling? Do they know what we're doing? Do we feel like they're going to support a renewal or maybe expansion, maybe an enhanced, the 1/4% versus a 1/8? We'll learn more about that in 2027, and the results from that will let us know how we need to proceed. So we can adjust our communications after that. But we're setting ourselves up basically now to make sure people are aware of what we do, all the benefits, all the successes thus far, and what we are at risk of losing if this measure doesn't pass. So you'll see a lot of social media. You'll see people in the community will be out there tabling, just communicating and getting the word out now. So it sticks in people's heads. By the time 2028 comes around, they're going to recognize Measure Q and that it's a good thing. It's a really important thing. And so with that, I'm open to any questions.
I'll just make a comment. I think it's great that you're going to be doing this information campaign now for So there were 4 tax measures on the June ballot in Monterey County. All of them failed. There are 10 on the November ballot. I have a feeling some of them are going to fail. A lot of these, it's sort of like election time and we're introducing to the voters, what this is. That's a flaw. So, if you're reaching that point, you're already in trouble. So I think this is good. It could be challenging to pass in 2028. So just keep on doing what you're doing. The data is real key for getting the people who are in the might vote yes and might vote no.
Right.
So, and that's critical to get them because I think you're going to have it's pretty obvious there's a larger number of people who are just going to vote no on all tax measures now for a variety of reasons. And it may have nothing to do with, MST being
Right.
good or not. So just this is good.
We're up for the challenge.
And then for the essential trips, are you using by chance any testimonials or
Yes,
full images?
definitely. We've identified a couple of folks who are willing to speak on camera, kind of using images. I think people speak to people. We can show an image of a bus, but it's more powerful when they see a person who depends on that service and they connect with people. You don't connect with the machine. And so we have someone that's willing to do videos and kind of speak on behalf of the services that they've received. So yeah, that'll be coming up.
And then Member Velasquez has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you for that information and for providing that outreach plan. I have a question though, in terms of the testimonials or the outreach. One is just making sure that you're targeting all the demographics that we have in Monterey County, especially the specific ones that are utilizing Measure Q, but within each of our regions, right, the different demographics in terms of our community that we represent. And then my other just comment would be, or recommendation would be, to ensure that all the cities, as we're looking at the data and how the data breaks down and where the community is coming from in terms of the highest demand for services, I think it's really important to be able to work with those cities directly and ensure that they have the data points in your toolkit and your fact sheet that they're also sharing out at the same time, right? So it's not just on the Measure Q committee or on MST, but it's also the cities, because it's impacting the residents that they serve as well. So making sure that there's direct communication and collaboration and partnership within the cities as well as the county.
Thank you. I think it will be critical, the partnership with all of you and the groups to spread the word. You can multiply it by, I don't know, tenfold by each of you going out to your network and sharing the word. So we'll definitely be working together. I appreciate that in advance.
Sure, I have a question. Well, it's actually more of a comment than a question. Mr. Dayton is correct about some of the other tax measures in our community, but a lot of those tax measures didn't pass because I feel that some of the public saw it as getting government agencies out of their financial problems. And to me, you never raise taxes to get out of your financial problems. Here, I think if you focus on how well run this measure is, I think people will connect to that, and that financially, you've done an excellent job of using the money. And I think that's the message that needs to get out, instead of the message, hey, we're in debt, we need a tax to get out of debt. So I think that's extremely important to get across. No question, just a
Agree.
comment.
Thank you.
I agree with that. Well, 2 weeks ago, I made a presentation to Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association annual meeting, talking about all the agencies I'm involved with. You know, no one had any, people regard MST generally as well run, so you keep on promoting that sort of thing. And yeah, they gave the smackdown to, as you might guess, the places that are raising taxes to balance their budget. So yeah, I think it's very good to start with, you know, we've got a balance. I liked when you said we got a balanced budget here. You know, but if we don't have this tax anymore, then we're going to, you know, have problems.
Yeah.
So yes, very good.
I thank you for that, Kevin. I just think it's very important that they understand that you do have a balanced budget and you're very responsible with taxpayers' money. That needs to get out.
Any other questions?
Questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item 5 is close session, seeing none. Move on to item 6, committee member comments and announcements. Seeing none. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Sid Williams, who passed away last week. Monterey Salinas Transit mourns the passing of U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major Sid Williams, who passed away last week. Sid served his country as a decorated combat veteran of the Vietnam and Persian Gulf Wars. After retirement from the military, he continued actively serving as the backbone of the veteran community of the Central Coast as a leader and organizer of events, including the Monterey County Veteran Stand Down and Resource Fair, and establishment of the California Central Coast Veterans Cemetery in Seaside, where he will be buried. Sid was a champion for the passage of the Measure Q ballot measure that established a local funding source for transportation programs for seniors, veterans, and persons with disabilities. With passage of Measure Q, Sid became the founding chair of the Measure Q Citizens Oversight Committee that ensured that Monterey Salinas Transit programs met the requirements of the ballot measure. On behalf of the Monterey Salinas Transit District Board of Directors, members of the Measure Q Citizens Oversight Committee, the staff of MST, and all those members of the public who have benefited from Measure Q over the past 12 years, we offer our condolences to his family, friends, and all those who have had the honor to serve alongside him. We will go ahead and adjourn in memory of Sid Williams at 1:48 p.m. Thank you, everyone.